Specimens. The voices of singing women call us on the far shore, and they are saying, forget the night, live with us in forests of azure. You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
There's a lot of myth surrounding the life of Jim Morrison. Between his wild antics on stage, his mysterious death, and his dark and existential lyrics, it's no wonder most people see Morrison as a Dionysus-like character, a jester into a descent into madness. This image of Morrison is reinforced in the most popular works about his life, including the 1980 biography, No One Here Gets Out Alive, and the 1991 movie directed by Oliver Stone. But before he was a rock star, Jim Morrison was a student at the University of California, Los Angeles, studying in their film program. And before that, he was 19 years old living in Clearwater, Florida, in love with a girl named Mary Werbelow. To understand who Jim Morrison was beyond the wild character he portrayed in his lyrics and how he's portrayed in the Oliver Stone movie, we'll be looking at his early life, his time at UCLA and Venice Beach, and the motivations behind the lyrics of the Doors' first album. James Douglas Morrison was born on December 8, 1943, to George Stephen Morrison, an officer in the United States Navy, and Clara Virginia Clark. He had two siblings, Andrew Lee Morrison and Anne Robin Morrison. By all accounts, it seemed like Morrison and his siblings had an average, normal childhood for military kids. During his career in the Doors, however, Jim Morrison would become famous for mythologizing a car crash he saw as a child. Mentioned in the song Peace Frog from their album Morrison Hotel, Jim Morrison describes a violent car crash he saw in his childhood, where he witnessed, quote, Indians scattered on Dawn's highway bleeding, and that perhaps a few of their souls had entered into his fragile eggshell mind. In the words of his parents and sister, however, it wasn't quite like that. Instead of bodies all over the highway, there was only one fatality, and the crash was with Hispanic people instead. This moment especially is one Oliver Stone chose to focus on to build his case of Morrison as a modern-day mystic with a tragic past. Throughout his childhood and early adulthood, Morrison would pore over poetry, philosophy, and literature in his spare time. He was especially drawn to the works of writers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, William Blake, Plutarch, Franz Kafka, and Jean Cocteau. Their themes of existentialism, hedonism, and morality would come to heavily influence his poetry and song lyrics. After graduating in 1961 from George Washington High School in Alexandria, Virginia, Morrison would attend St. Petersburg Junior College in Clearwater, Florida. And here on the beaches of Clearwater is where he would meet Mary Werbelow. Stated in a 2005 article by Robert Farley from the Tampa Bay Times, Morrison and Werbelow met on Clearwater Beach in 1962. And in the words of Werbelow, they were connected on a level where speaking was almost unnecessary. Their meeting is actually chronicled in Jim Morrison's spoken word album, An American Prayer, on the track Stoned Immaculate, albeit with very poetic framing. The quote is, "One summer night, going to pier, I ran into two young girls.
The blonde was called Freedom, the dark one Enterprise. We talked and they told me the story."
After Morrison graduated from Florida State University, he moved to Los Angeles in 1964 to attend UCLA's film school. Werbelow would eventually join him despite protests from her parents, and the two continued their relationship for a time. Around this time is also when Morrison met Ray Manzarek, keyboardist of The Doors and lifelong friend. Speaking about his time in The Doors in his spoken word biography, The Doors, Myth and Reality, Manzarek gives an insight into the Jim Morrison that he knew, before the fame and all the rock star life. He said this before Jim left for Paris in 1971. Get away from all this LA
stuff and this whole rock and roll thing and become a poet again. Become the guy that I knew back in Venice, the guy that I knew in film school at UCLA, the writer, the artist, the good guy, the good human being, the funny human being, the intelligent, sensitive, energized young man that I knew back in Venice, and I thought, this is going to be great. Go to Paris and do it, man. Start to write again. Start to become an artist. Just be an artist again. Don't be a rock star. Be an artist. And off he went, and he said, I'll see you, brother.
And it's no wonder Ray would say this. After they had both graduated from UCLA, Jim with a bachelor's and Ray with a master's, they both lived together at Venice Beach with Ray's future wife, Dorothy Fujikawa. Throughout Doors, Myth and Reality, and several other interviews, Manzarek has told countless stories of the times him and Jim spent together before they became famous. The two of them would swing in the gymnast bars at the beach, they would go to restaurants late at night like Olivia's, which was wrote about in their song Soul Kitchen, and crazier stories like when Jim was arrested for getting in a bar fight with the Hells Angels before a rehearsal session. The fateful meeting the two had on Venice Beach in 1965 to form the Doors actually did happen similarly to the Oliver Stone movie, but with a key detail of context missing. Mary had actually broken up with Jim, citing his drunkenness, cheating with other women, and experimenting with psychedelic drugs. As Ray has said in many interviews, Jim's breakup with Mary is written all over the first album of the Doors. At face value, their first album is a rallying cry for social revolution, to overthrow the old ways and begin a new life on the perimeter of society. Looking deeper, the dark and profound lyrics Morrison sings are mostly a front for heartbreak, an outlet for Jim to overcome his breakup from Mary. Beginning with Break On Through, the song announces the Doors' presence with a thundering arrival of psychedelic urgency, the battle cry to live life in a new way. Discussing the song in an interview, Morrison said, "I like ideas about the breaking away or overthrowing of established order. I am interested in anything about revolt, disorder, chaos, especially activity that seems to have no meaning." Lyrically, the song is inspired by a variety of poetic and literary sources as well as Morrison's own life. In a 1967 interview with Hit Parader, Morrison said about the writing of the song, "I was walking over a bridge in Venice. I guess it's about one girl, a girl I knew at the time." Going off this quote, it's possible to plot a story for the album as a person trying to get over the love of their life. Though Soul Kitchen is at face value about Olivia's, the restaurant on Venice Beach, the lyrics can also be interpreted as wanting to be in the embrace of a loved one. Like these lyrics here imply that the subject of the song will be lost if he isn't with the one he loves. As well as the lyric, "The clock says it's time to close now, I know I have to go now," is the subject acknowledging that they must eventually leave this person's presence. Building on the note of regret that Soul Kitchen ends on, Crystal Ship begins with these lines, "Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss." Throughout the song, the subject has not let go of the relationship and fantasizes of meeting the person again, seen in these lyrics here. The crystal ship is being filled, 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills. These lyrics imply that the subject is boarding their crystal ship, which will mean leading a life that is far removed from how they once lived with their partner. Even though the subject has now resolved to live a new life, he still reminisces about his love, describing her in an almost cold way, especially this lyric right here, where he says, "Got the world locked up inside a plastic box." This cover of a classic 1920s German song details one of the reasons why the subject of the song lost his love: drinking and going to the whiskey bar, indulging in an addiction. Primarily written by Robbie Krieger, Light My Fire was the Doors' biggest radio hit, and acts as something of an interlude to the story progression of the album. The lyrics revisit the general theme of the album, especially the line, "Our love become a funeral pyre," alluding to the end of the relationship. A backdoor man is traditionally someone who has an affair with a married woman, alluding to the unfaithfulness Jim had in his relationship with Mary. I Looked at You has the subject character of the album accepting this new path they have determined for their life, and that there is no way back. End of the Night acts as a description of the place the subject character is going, and the kind of people who will be there. After the end of the night, dawn brings a new beginning. which is the end. But before we come to the end, Take It As It Comes is a call to action to embrace the suffering of the world, and for other people to join into the subject character's journey into his new way of life. While the end is most famous for its reenactment of Oedipus Rex, the song is bookended by lyrics about the acceptance of the breakup the main character experiences. In the same Tampa Bay Times article that discusses how Jim Morrison met Mary Werbelow, it is stated that the end began as a short goodbye love song to Mary, but it gradually evolved into the strange ballad it is through the band's studio sessions. In a story from John Densmore's autobiography, Riders on the Storm, Morrison became tearful at one point while recording and went on a soliloquy about shedding the old ways of life that are influenced by the mother and father, and that people should begin life anew in an entirely new way. Given what we've discussed, there is far more to Jim Morrison than just a motivationless lunatic as he is portrayed in pop culture. And to be fair, if you only listened to the Doors lyrics or only saw the movie, you would likely come to this conclusion as well. However, understanding the facts about Morrison's life paints a very different picture. He actually had a fairly normal childhood, and the famed car crash wasn't actually that violent. He had a genuine friendship with Ray Manzarek, who saw through his rock star image and understood that he was a poet and an artist beneath the extreme facade that he projected. And though Morrison has said himself that the lyrics of the first album are largely about chaos and overthrowing established order, they're clearly also about his heartbreak from the end of his relationship with Mary. Thank you for watching. The information in this video only scratches the surface of information about the life of Jim Morrison, and I encourage you to read other sources as well. Please find some of the sources I used in the video's description.